morning. As we go to the chitas of the day, we are new parsha. We are holding in the portion of Kiseitze, which is in Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse number 10. Kiseitze lemacham alavecha, when you go out to war against your enemy. When the son Hashem lekecha beyadecha, and your Lord your God will deliver them in your hands. Vishavisa shivya, and you'll take a captive. So Rashi says, Giseitz al-Malchama, there's two kinds of wars that the Torah talks about. There's a war that's an obligation. We mentioned in the last week portion, the 7 nations that are living in Eretz Yisrael. That's a war of obligation that you're supposed to take. You're supposed to conquer. And then there's Melchemes Harashus. There's a war that's the optional war, non-obligatory war that you needed to go due to different issues that was happening with that country. Because if it's a war about the land of Israel, if it's a war for the land of Israel, then we take no captives. The 7 nations, we take no captive, as the Torah tells us. The Torah already said you're not allowed to let live any of the nations, or those 7 nations that lived in Eretz Yisrael at that time. You're not allowed to leave over anybody alive. This comes to add Aknanim that are in the midst. So even though there were the 7 nations, but whatever reason you went out to war out of Israel, due to those that are paining you from out of Israel, and you go out to war and you find over there's a Canaanite. You don't have to kill him. He's not in Israel, but you can capture him as a captive. This is the law of Eishes Yefas Toyar, a very interesting law in the Torah. You see amongst your captive a beautiful woman, and you desire her, and you want to take her as your wife. It's not, she said, Eisha feel Eisha, she's a married woman. Now she says, not that you are commanded to take a woman as your wife, but Scripture in its permitting marriage is speaking only against the evil inclination, which drives him to desire her. For the Holy One, blessed be He, would not permit it for her to permit him. He would ultimately come to despise her. And it says after this, if a man has 2 wives, one beloved and one despised. So you see, if you marry for the wrong reason, if you married this woman because you have a desire, which is a struggle, and you cannot overcome your struggle, ultimately you're going to come to hate this person. So that's the way it is. But the Eibishter doesn't stop a person from his Yetzer Hara, from his evil inclination. And therefore, if you're going to ultimately, as a Torah, you'll convert her and you'll marry her, it's not a problem. But the problem is the way it started. It started off with an evil inclination. It started off with a Yetzer Hara. It started off with a situation of desire. And ultimately, Rashi says, ultimately we have a wayward child. And that's why the 3 parshas go the laws go one after another in this week's parsha. Verse 12. What do you do? Bring her into your house. For her head. And let her nails grow long. Why you do all this? So she should grow, so that she should become repulsive. What do you love her? You love her because of her looks. Well, if you'll take away her looks, you'll see if you still love her. If you love her for the right reason, you love her for not the right reason. Take off her garments of captivity. Let her sit in your house. Let her weep for her father and mother for a full month. Then, if you still want to marry her, you'll marry her. But take away all the glories. Take away her garments of captivity, so that she should be not attractive. For they are pretty clothes. They used to send out their daughters. The nations of the world would send out their daughters to war. What is she doing in a war? But they used to send out her daughters, the girls, to the war, so they should seduce the Jews. So now she's beautiful clothes. Take her off her beautiful clothes. Let her wear non so beautiful clothes. And let's see if you still love her. In the house he uses. Upon entering, he will stumble upon her, and upon leaving, he will stumble upon her. See her weeping, see her unsightly appearance, and maybe you'll become maybe she will become maybe you're not going to want her. So therefore, I mean, this is in general that Rashi says this in general, talking about any kind of a desire a person might have. If you have a desire for any kind of negative thing, stripe all its glory and its beauty away and see if you still want it. Why is all this necessary? So that an Israelite woman and this Jewish man's wife should be happy, and this Gentile captive woman should be grief-stricken, as another woman should be dressed up, and this one should be. You should be able to separate the two issues. And here you're married to a Jewish woman, and be happy. No, so you have to find another captive. So take away her beauty, see if you still have the same desire, and then go from there and see what happens. What happens now? You realize you don't want to have her. Now that you put her through this pain, this girl, and now you don't want to marry her, now she's free. She's not your slave. Since you put her through pain, she becomes free. For shilcha nafshi, you have to send her away. And you're not to have any value from her. You're not allowed to keep her as a servant because you afflicted her. You pained her. You didn't want to. You thought that you wanted to marry her. You didn't marry her. Now you have to let her go. The Torah tells you that in general, if you marry for the wrong reason, you ultimately fall into situations that are not good. You're going to hate each other. L'sisam means you're not allowed to use her as a slave. You cannot. But she's my captive. Doesn't make a difference. You're not allowed to use her for anything. You have to let it free, and that's the law of Yefas Torah. Those days when they went out to war, they're captives, so you can really capture her for a slave. If you originally captured her for a slave, that's not a problem. Because that's what the law of war those days. You captured people, they became your possession. But over here, you didn't capture her for your slave. You captured her you wanted her as a wife. And once you put her through this pain, now she can't say, "Oh, I changed my mind. I don't want you as a wife. I want you as a slave." It doesn't work. You have to let her go. Also, the Torah wants to respect people, human beings, even a person that is a slave. Verse number 15. If a man has two wives, Torah law, a man can have more than one wife. So if this man has two wives, one that he loves, and one that he despises. And they both had children. The one that he loves, he had a child. It was Nuya. And God has the last laugh. And it happens to happen that the first child of yours is from the woman that you hate. Now, you hate this woman. You hate her child. And now you need to inherit your child, your children, your money. When it comes to time to bequeath the property, to inherit your children, you're not going to be able to outrun the law of the first child. In Torah law, the first child takes double. So you have 5 children, you divide the property into 6. And the first son takes 2 parts. So if you have 2 children, so you divide the property into 3. And the first one takes 2 parts. And that's the law. So you might say, oh, wait a second. This child, that's my first child, is from the woman I don't like, so I'm not going to give him that. You don't have that right. The law of inheritance in the Torah is automatic. You don't have to write even a will. The law of inheritance is automatic, goes to your children. And it's divided equally according to your children, how many children you have. And the first son takes double. That's the law. He must acknowledge the firstborn. Lastly, that he gets a double share. Whatever he has, because he's his first strength. And he has the birthright entitlement. Rashi Pishnayim Kedegeshne Achim. Pishnayim means like two brothers. So he gets the value of two brothers. As I said, if he has two children, you divide into three. If he has three children, you divide into four. From here we learn that the first son does not take a double share from which the father's estate is entitled to after his demise of the father, meaning from an uncollected debt. You only take the value that it's now, not double from what it will be. So, for example, like in today's situation, when a person died, his stock value was $1, and that's how it's divided. What happens a week later? Suddenly it's $10. So now the firstborn can't say, "Oh, I get 10 times more now because the stock is more." No, we go to the value what the stock was at the time of passing, and that's the way it's go. Verse number 18. If a man will have a wayward child, and who does not listen to the voice of his father and mother, they will warn him, and he will not listen to them. This is the law of a wayward child, which the Gemara says openly was never ever happened. A wayward child. It not only never happens, it's impossible to have such a situation. Because if you'd follow the law to the T, it's impossible to have such a situation. So that's just saw my derech as wayward child, a child that went off the way. This is a word meaning rebel. So they must warn him in the presence of three people, not steal, nor eat certain quantities of meat, and drink certain quantities of wine. And they must have him flogged by the court. The Talmud amends this to read, they must warn him in the presence of 2 witnesses, and have him flogged in the presence of 3 judges. The wayward rebellious son incurs punishment only if he steals money from his father, consumes at one meal a weight equal to half a manna of meat, drinks at the same meal a half lug of wine, and it is said, referring to him, a glutton and a guzzler. Zaylel v'sayviv, the next verse. And elsewhere it's written, do not be amongst the wine guzzlers, amongst the glutton eaters of meat, which indicates the term of a guzzler refers to a wine and a glutton refers to meat. The wayward and rebellious son is executed on account what will become in the end. The Torah penetrates in the ultimate intention. Eventually, he will squander his father's money, seek what is becoming constant to, not find it, and stand in the crossroads and rob people, killing them, thereby incurring death penalty. Says the Torah, let him die an innocent child, young innocent boy, rather than him and guilty of such crimes. So, I mean, as I said, this is a very interesting law, and really it's more of a law that teaches us the concept of why children become, why do sometimes children become wayward children, and the way maybe we should look into this situation. Why this happened? And his father and mother shall take hold of him. And they bring him to the elders of the city and to the gate of his place, of the city. And they're going to say, this son of ours is a wayward, rebellious child. And they're not listening to our voices. He's a glutton and a guzzler. The men of the city shall pelt him with stones, and you shall clear the evil from amongst you, and the Jewish people should listen and hear. Rashi said, here we learn we must have the law of proclamation, public proclamation. Plain in Iskal, this person was stoned because it was a Ben Seder murder. So you have the 3 laws over here: the Yafas Torah, the law of Yafas Torah, of a beautiful woman and captive; the law of a Ben Snua, so a son of the child of a woman that you hate; and you have the law of a Ben Seder murder, a child that's a wayward child. And that's completes the Chumash for today. Today is the 6th day of the month, which starts the 11th letter of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe starts as follows: to enlighten you with understanding. That not by this path, with the light of God dwell within you at one. By the desire of life of flesh, children, and sustenance. The Alter Rebbe is negating a desire that emanates from craving for pleasure, rather than the desire that results from purposeful need. And therefore our sages said us, nullify your will. You want to have a happy life, you need a break. I need to break my desires. Because the more desires I'm going to have, the more it's going to bring me into trouble. And therefore I shouldn't have that many taivas. I should even not sins, even taivas that are not per se avedas. This means not that one should set aside his own will because it does not coincide with God, but that from the outset one's will should be nullified, that he has no desire whatsoever for worldly matters. This incorporates, when it says worldly matters, I mean with children, life, and such. Don't be so that should not consume you. That should not consume you. Some people say the whole life, even though some people say my whole life is my children. That's not the way it is. Your life is about God. It's not about your personal or your family. It's not. The Eibishter wants you to have a family. The Eibishter wants you to have children. The Eibishter wants you to support your children. So although these are essentials, and though they affect one's divine service, they should not be desired not for themselves, but only insofar as they further the accomplishment of one's spiritual task. Very powerful. The above directive, to nullify, thus implies bittul b'metzias, an utter nullification of self. Confronting by a scholar's stature a lesser scholar may experience less self-effacement, but will still remain self-assertive personally. Utter nullification, by contrast, means that this sensation of self ceases to exist. In a similar vein, nullifying one's own wishes before God connotates the essence of any wishes other than God. As our sages say, against your will you live. Meaning, if one should view the corporal aspects of his life as being contrary to his will, and surely do with regard to corporal aspects of children and sustenance, you're forced to live. Really, your whole life is basically to God, but I'm forced to live. I'm forced to go to work. I'm forced to have children. I'm forced to support them. I'm forced to have a family. I'm forced. But really, my whole life should be given over to the Eibishter. That's really my life. To clarify this matter, how can one achieve a state of not desiring the physical, even those things most crucial of his existence? How does one accomplish that? This can only be achieved when there is an absolute belief in the Creator of beginning. Literally, in the opening words of the Aleinu prayer, this phrase refers to God as one who formed the first beginning of creation. In the Kabbalistic lexicon, however, Reishis also kind of says Sfiris is called Chachma, wisdom. The Alter Rebbe hence uses the phrase here to allude to God as the one who created everything by the means of Reishis. What's that mean? Beginning, by the means of beginning. What's the beginning? The beginning is Sfiras HaChochma, is the attribute of wisdom. Daina Shabriya, This means that creation of yesh, which exists, yesh mi'ayin, out of nothing, which is nothing, was something from nothing, hanikar reishis chokhmah, which is called the beginning of wisdom. So loosely, the phrase yesh me'ayin means something for nothing, meaning creation ex nihilo. Here, however, the meaning ayin is not non-being or non-existence. For we cannot say that the source of creation is non-being, when everything is from you. All creation comes from God, so how is it non? The only entity that had true existence is the Eibishter. How do we say it was something from nothing? Rather, ayin. What means ayin? Something from ayin. Ayin means incomprehensible. Something from what we can come. So the comprehensible was created from the incomprehensible. What is the incomprehensible? For that which is created, being understands the term existence, while it is totally transcends his understanding. He donates it as non-existence, in so much that it does not exist in the world of understanding. That means that's the meaning of something from nothing. It's not the simple meaning nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing because we cannot comprehend it. Yesh me'ayin thus describes the creation of something that comes from existence, the existence of an ayin of chachma. Chachma, in turn, is known as reishis first, as the verse says, reishis chachma, the beginning of wisdom. So the level of emanation called chachma is deemed first, because its firstness fitters, as such, serves as the source of creation. Unlike the level of divinity preceding it, which are too high, so to speak, to emanate down to the level of creation. And this wisdom, this divine sphere of chachma, which is not apprehendable to any created being, and which is the level of divinity described above as Yoitze Bereshis, that refers to God, the one who created everything by the means of Reshis, by the means of beginning, which is by the Sphiras of Chachma, which Chachma, as we learned in Chassidus over and Tanya many times, Chachma is wisdom, means I don't understand it. Koyach ma, what is it? So that is Chachma. Everything was created from ayin, even though it's wisdom, but I don't know what it is. It's above me. Habriya azois, and that's why this creation, the chorega v'rega, is continuously. It never ends, because there's no beginning and there's no end to Chachma. There's no beginning, no end to wisdom. In which all created beings are created from something, from nothing. And since it's created from Chachma, that is nothing, because it's higher than comprehension, that's why it's continuously. If it's comprehended, it came to an end. That's why Bina, understanding, is already in the box. It comes to the beginning and there's an end. It might be wide, it might be very big, but there's still a beginning and an end. But Chachma is unlimited. Chachmasi is barach hamachayis hakel. All comes from the wisdom of God, which animates everything. Now, when a man will contemplate in depth of his understanding, and more of a picture in his mind, how he comes into the being exonilo at every moment, every moment of the day he is created, because he comes from wisdom. He comes from ayin. He comes from wisdom. It's continuously, it's a continuous concept. It doesn't come to an end. It doesn't start and doesn't end. Therefore, it's a continuous concept. So that he in effect, every moment of existence by the God's wisdom, how can he entertain the thought that he's suffering? Or any affliction related to children, life, health, and sustenance. Or any worldly afflictions. If he comes from ayin, if his source is wisdom, which is ayin, which is the wisdom of God, which is the source of life, of goodness and delight. How is it possible that he's affected by all this troubles that he's having in the world. When he comes from Chachma, it can change in a second. It's a new beginning in a second. It's an Eden that transcends the world to come. The world to come, the Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, is most sublime form of bliss, expression of soul, independent of godliness that's when after 120 years. This level that he is in this world that he receives from Chachma is lofty as it may be. I'm talking Gan Eden, but a garden, a stage once removed from the spiritual delight which flows from the source which is called Eden. So it's a Gan Eden. So even paradise is Gan that comes from an Eden. That means there's a higher source that's Eden, the light. In this level of divinity that constantly creates and visualizes all things being. So we're worried about Gan Eden, or our journey is to Gan Eden. No, our journey is to Chachma. Gan Eden is still in the box. Gan Eden still have a limitation. We're looking to Ayin. We're looking to the wisdom, which is continuous, which is unlimited. And where do we have that wisdom in this world? Because we all are created yesh me'ayin. We are all created only from that Chachma. Only Chachma, this hidden wisdom, can create a yesh, can create a physical thing. So we are the real thing. Real life is right now in this world. And therefore, if you understand that real life is right now in this world, nothing in the world should affect you. Nothing in the world should affect me. I, right now, at this moment, I'm in existence because of that ayin, because of that wisdom, which is above time and space. So how can time and space affect me if I am right now, and this moment was created from this unlimited power? The only reason why I don't feel that way, because I don't have an understanding in godliness. And one imagines that he's suffering or afflicted. But the truth is that no negative comes from above. And everything is good. You don't comprehend as such because it's immense and abundance of good at a level which is inconceivable to man. So you don't comprehend it. You don't see it as good. No, what should we do? And this is the essence of faith for which man was created. Lahamin, to believe, the less asar ponim. There's no place of void of God. And the light of the king countenance, there is life. Accordingly, strength and gladness is his place. The fact that God is found everywhere should encourage a man to strengthen his trust and thereby filling him with joy for whatever predicament he finds himself in. God is there too. And wherever God is present, there is strength and there's gladness. Because he, God, is good all times. Wow, what a letter. I should read this letter. Everybody should read this letter over and over again. Today is the 6th day of the month, my friends, which is chapter 35, 36, 37, 35, 36, 37, 38. From 35 to 38 is the Tillim of the day. Also, today is, well, the 3 chapters of the day are today is the 7th day of the month. I apologize. Today is the 7th day of the month, chapter 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. And okay, so from chapter 39 to 43, and today are the chapters 19, 20, and 21. I wish you a wonderful, beautiful, happy day. 10 o'clock today, we're going to learn Shara B'Tachin. The Shara B'Tachin we're going to learn today is connected to today's Tanya in the most strongest way that can be. Have a wonderful, happy, beautiful, gorgeous day.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless you guys.